Hello there, welcome to lesson number 4 in our series on using FluidDesigner for 3D printing to create lampshades, light fittings. In today's lesson we're going to show you how you can create a lamp shade using a Z math function, which is a function that's built into FluidDesigner. So if you start off FluidDesigner, we're doing lighting projects, so you need to go to Learning Projects, Lighting Projects. And we need to do lesson number 4, so we want 04 ZMath surface ceiling lamp, so we can drag and drop that onto the workspace. I'll just switch on the screencast key, so any key presses I make should be displayed down here. And this is the object that we want to create in today's lesson. Now there are 3 copies of it, so they're just duplicated. That's pretty straightforward, so we just make one and duplicate it. And if you look in the help window down on the left hand corner here, you'll see how we can actually create this object. Well, what we need to going to do is to add a mesh. It's a math function, and then we add a Z math surface. So if we go to add mesh, math function and Z math surface, and as you can see, the initial object is really tiny. It's only 2mm by 2mm by 2mm. So if we go to view and zoom to selected, you can see what the object looks like. That's it, and that's the Z math surface, the default shape. If we just open up the toolbox window here, you can see that the surface itself is made up using this equation here, 1 minus bracket x squared plus y squared close bracket, and there are some size values here that you can change, so you could resize it in this panel here, but we can only change the x and the y value in there. But what we can do is we can change the number of vertices, and if you look closely at the object, if you change the number of vertices here, what you're doing is smoothing out the object. If I just switch to wireframe mode, probably see it a little better. It's actually adding more wires to the object the higher this value is, and so the lower the value, the less smooth the surface is. The higher the value, the more smooth the surface is. So those are values you could change in the toolbox window. We're not going to do it that way. We're going to leave it as it is at the moment. So I'm just going to go back to material mode. We're going to use the properties panel over here to change the sizes. So we want an X value of 100mm. So if we type 100 mm, that will change the X value. We also want 100mm as the Y value. And we want 300mm as the Z dimension. Okay, so there's our object, and as you can see already, it is now the same as the finished objects. Now, whenever you scale anything like this in FluidDesigner, you always need to reset the scale back to 1, and we always do that by doing Control A and applying the scale. So whenever you resize an object like this in FluidDesigner, always do Control A and reset the scale. Now, in order for this to be a light fitting, we need some hole at the top of this. So if we just go to view and view it from the top and just zoom in, we're in perspective mode at the moment, so it's looking a little bit odd. If I change from perspective to ortho mode, that's better. This is the one we've created in this lesson. So if we go view and view it from the top, and if we just zoom in, we want to create a hole at the top here. So what we need to do is to press the tab key to go into edit mode, and at the moment all the mesh is highlighted, so if we press A, that will deselect that. Now this is the center of the top of the mesh, so what we want to do is to highlight some cells here and delete them. So if we highlight that and hold down the shift, I'm holding down the shift key on the keyboard now, so I can select multiple options here. Now I might not just have got the one in the middle there, but with all of those faces selected, if I press the X key on the keyboard, I can delete those faces. And as I suspected, I hadn't quite got the one in the middle there selected. The crosshairs do tend to get in the way sometimes when you're doing this delete function. So I'll highlight the face in the center there and press X on the keyboard and delete that face. So I've just created a hole in the top. Actually looks a little bit big. Obviously, if this was going to be a real light fitting, you would have to take a little bit more care over this and measure the dimensions exactly. But that'll do for what we're doing in this lesson. So I can come out of edit mode now by pressing the tab key on the keyboard. And if we zoom back in again, you'll notice that this, like is often the case in FluidDesigner, this is just a shell. It's got no thickness to it. So we need to apply a thickness, and we do that by using the modifier icon and adding a solidify modifier. So if we add a thickness of 3 millimeters, now at the moment you can see the thickness is being applied on the inside. So if I just keep doing that, you can see it's making it thicker on the inside. If I change the offset value here from -1 to +1 and apply a thickness, the thickness is applied to the outside of the object now, or the outside of the shell I should say. And that's really what I want to do. I could try ticking even thickness. Doesn't make a lot of difference. Sometimes they do. But that'll do now. So I've applied a thickness of 3 millimeters. I now need to confirm this. And we can do that in FluidDesigner by going to Tools, Object Tools, and converting it to a mesh. So there's my light shade cover. So what I can do now is I can delete the other 3 at the bottom. So I'm going to highlight the one at the bottom there and press X and delete it. Highlight this one, X and delete. Highlight this, press X and delete. And we now want to make multiple copies of the one that we've created in this lesson. And so what we need to do is to go to Tools, Object Tools, and duplicate the object. Duplicate the object. And if I just move the mouse out of the way, you can see there's the duplicate. And I just do the same thing again. Tools, Object Tools, and duplicate the object. And just drag it over there. So there we are. There's 3 copies of the same object. So there are light fittings made with the ZMath surface. What we need to do now is to save these to disk, and as is usual in FluidDesigner, we always go to File and Save As. Come up through the menu system. We want to go to My Projects, Lighting Projects. So it's 04, a ZMath surface ceiling lamp, and we save that as a Blender file. Now we can't print Blender files, so what we need to do is to go to File and export this as a wavefront object. And I like to save it to the desktop, so it's 04 ZMath surface ceiling lamp OBJ file. And then, as is always the case when you're working with FluidDesigner, we always need to go to Netfab Basic and to check the mesh. So if we go to Project and Open, go to the desktop, open lesson 04 ZMath surface ceiling lamp. That's what we've created. So we just need to go to Extras and repair the part. And if I just move the window across and run automatic repair and execute it, we have got 3 shells because clearly we've got 3 different objects here. So if we apply the repair and remove any old part, that now is our printable mesh. So all we need to do is to go to Part, export part as a wavefront object, export it to the desktop with the file name repaired, and that's the printable file. Okay, so that's it. That's the end of this, this lesson. Thank you.